I'm going to give you today 3 signs that you might need in hand rather than groundwork. And along with those 3 signs, we're going to show you how to identify what is groundwork and what is in hand, how to constantly improve as a rider, even if you've had negative experiences in the past, and how to use your groundwork to transform your riding so that you're guiding your horse, not just telling your horse stuff to do. So hi, my name is Adderson. And if you want to get notifications when I go live, you can click on the bell icon. It will fill in and then you will get notifications of when I go live. I have a question for you to start. What is it that you need to do in your groundwork with your horse? Or what is it? What objectives are you after in your groundwork? The 3 signs. And these are not the only signs, but just 3 signs that you might need in hand rather than groundwork. Number 1, your horse is always pushy. Number 2, your horse is always spooky. Number 3, everything seems fine on the ground, but then you get into the saddle and things just fall apart. So for me, groundwork and in hand are one and the same. They're the same things. We're working on exactly the same objectives. And we realize the same benefits from doing either. We're basically preparing to ride. And now everybody wants to ride their horses, but it's definitely a way to ride your horse and prepare for that in the best way that you possibly can do. So let's start with number 1. Your horse is pushy. Let's say that's one of the signs that you have that may indicate that you need to do more work on the ground. And that is because we want our horses to understand us and to learn how to self-carry themselves. Those are objectives that we need to work on from the moment we take a hold of a halter, a lead rope. We're working on those 2 things. Does the horse understand me? And does the horse know how to self-carriage? So using the work on the ground to guide your horse rather than tell your horse what to do. And with a horse that's pushy all the time, I had this student in our program who came and she said, I want to work on lead changes. And what was happening that her horse could do lead changes, sort of, but it was a huge bucking and a huge leap into the air to get the lead change accomplished. And she came to me wanting to work on lead changes and get them better. And a lot of the time when students come with a very specific idea in mind or pieces in mind, they aren't really getting to the source of the problem. So what we helped her do in our program is we helped her to go on the ground in hand and establish a pattern and conditioning within not only her horse's body, but her body. And this was in preparation for lead changes. So if we had just worked on lead changes, there wasn't the background preparation for that horse. And so it would have just made things worse until the rider understood how to organize her own spine, her own body, and then they'll help the horse to organize his or her own body and his spine so that lead changes became, for her, it became easy and flowing and light, and the horse didn't get emotional, didn't have these outbursts and these huge explosions. But it's important to realize that the rider didn't really even realize that that was what was going on. So we helped her to get down to the real process of how to help the lead changes, was how to find the source of the problem. And a lot of times riders come to us, and I'd say about 80% of the riders have a problem, and usually the problem is not what they say it is. So they'll say they have a problem, but it's not really what the real problem is. And so what we did with this rider, what we helped her with, was we took her through the process in our program where we helped her with organizing herself, coordinating herself, and then coordinating the horse next. And there will be friction and there will be difficulties in the process. With any horse and rider pair, there always is, that's for sure. But students get in their own way, and then they get in the horse's way. So that adds to the friction. It adds to the difficulties when the rider is actually getting in their own way and getting in their horse's way. And so when you get this sorted out, that's when the lean changes for this rider became, like I said, they were easier and easier. There weren't the explosive leaps into the air, and it was easier to ride, and it was also well understood by the horse. That horse understood how to coordinate their body to get the task accomplished without having major explosions. Let's go to the next one, which is horse is always spooky. If your horse is always spooky, this can be a very strong sign that you need to work more on the ground. And the use of the work on the ground helps the coordination of each of you. And not only the physical coordination, but the mental coordination, the emotional coordination, and the physical perspective too. So when you pick up on that lead rope, on the halter, when you get your horse to come out and ride or do whatever you're going to do, what do you have in your hand? What kind of horse do you have today? What does it feel like in your hand? That's where it all starts. Even more concentrated work with a bridle or a double bridle. You need to have a way to check in with your horse. So with a spooky horse, for example, and this is a rider also that we had in our program, her horse was rearing whenever, and the horse was always really spooky all the time, and it would result in a rear. So this rider, we helped her with her coordination. It's not that she wasn't uncoordinated, but she did have a previous injury which left her with a small limp. So her horse picked up on that. And it wasn't the limp that her horse was picking up specifically, but what it was what the limp was representing in the rider. And what the limp represented, and what we dug deep with her into her mindset, and what we found out was the resistances that were holding her back mentally and emotionally, the stuff that she was holding on to emotionally, and keeping stuck places in her body that turned out to be this limp. And so what we found out when we dug really deep, and what was behind this limp, was a lot of doubt, a lot of self-doubt, which affected her confidence as a rider. And it's no wonder it affected her confidence, because the reason she had the limp was from a previous injury, a long time in her past, and it was a very traumatic injury. So that held a lot of emotional charge to it. We released it in our program, and we filled it with positive energy. That's the part that the horse picks up on. It's not that you have a limp, but what that self-doubt led to, and this is what really the horse picked up on, was sneaky. She became sneaky in her movement. And so when she was here with her horse, I could see instantly that she was being too sneaky because she was doubting herself. And the horse picked up on that, and the rearing would happen, the confusion would happen, and the rider didn't know what to do next, and it was just not a good scene. In fact, very dangerous. So we helped her with her body, with her mindset, with her emotional state. We helped her to find her place of power. So she was grounded, so she was strong, and she could find from there clarity. And her horse really appreciated that immensely. The rearing stopped, the confusion stopped, and the conversation started, which leads me to my next point. The third sign, which is that everything seems fine on the ground, but then when you get into the saddle, all of a sudden it falls apart. And aside from saddle fit or pain issues or things like that, those things are separate. What we're going to talk about is how to work on the ground to start and to weave into a conversation. So when the conversation is stopped, for whatever reason that can be, and I talked about some of them previously here, we need to initiate and start the conversation rather than just having a dictatorship type style of leadership where it's always do this, do that, and there's no two-way conversation or dialogue between us and our horses. So on the ground, work on the ground is where the conversation starts. And by conversation, I mean an intelligent conversation. Okay, relating back to that leadership. An intelligent conversation considers another being's opinion, another being's perspective on something. So being intelligent is we're considering that the horse knows how to sort things out. If they have the appropriate help from you. If they don't have the appropriate help, then that can make it worse. But if they have the appropriate help, they're more than willing and intelligent enough to sort it out, right? They know their bodies. They can sort out how to self-carry themselves once you show them some key steps on how to do that. They're more than willing to find the place that's comfortable in their body once you show them how to find that. So that's what I mean by conversations. And riders come to us because they've worked with a lot of other people, right? They've done this clinic, this program, that online course. They've done a lot of stuff. And in the meantime, paid a lot of money to do it and invested a lot of time. But what is happening is they're still stuck. They're still in that place of confusion and they don't know why. And so this is where we take the rider in our program and we go into the deepest issues with the rider, with the horses that are holding them back, and we lead them to clarity. When they've lost clarity, then they've lost the conversation with their horse. Because if it's muddy, if it's foggy, if things are fuzzy, you can't possibly have clarity and you can't possibly have a good conversation. Once we get clarity and then we can have a conversation, then the pieces start to come in place. So then we can look at the horse as a whole. Then we can look at the rider as a whole. Then we can look at the rider and the horse combination as a whole. And we can get things like confidence. We can build confidence. We can build the connection. We can build the bond. And the communication, like we've already talked about, becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, which then feedbacks back into the bond and the connection and the confidence. And along that, with all of that, we're building trust all along the way. And then the absolute epitome of what we're looking for is the balance. With all of those things, you can then get balance. If you would like to get help with any of this, if you'd like to get help with work on the ground, living your dream with your horse, finding the freedom, finding the balance that gives you the freedom in yourself, in your horse, and fulfills this passion with your horse, then click on the link that you'll see somewhere around here. There'll be a link that will take you to a place where you can apply to work with us, and we can help you to see if we can help you on the ground or in the saddle, where we can help you with your horse, if it's pushy, if your horse is spooky, or if you find that things just aren't quite carrying over from on the ground to in the saddle. So thanks so much for being here. It's great to have you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.